A very good evening to all who have come here for our FDP for School of Mass Communication. Greetings, and every year KIIT University organizes faculty development program for its faculty members, and School of Mass Communication has started its own faculty development program. We have started from this year. Last year we had, it was quite exclusive and only a few of our faculty members were there, but we thought that knowledge should not be kept um, confined, and so it now more people have joined us, and a very warm welcome first to Dr. Das, and also to all the members who have joined here uh, with us. I would now ask Dr. Vidubhushan Das, course coordinator, School of Mass Communication, to welcome Dr. Biswajit Das.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Ruby Nanda, my colleague and assistant professor here in the School of Mass Communication, KIIT deemed University. It's a great honor to welcome to the distinguished speakers like Professor Biswajit Das. I welcome you, sir, for giving your valuable time to deliver the first session of our faculty development program at the School of Mass Communication, KIIT deemed University, Bhubaneswar. As this faculty development program is for the faculties of media, communication, and journalism studies, I'm pretty much sure that we all, the participants present here, know Professor Das and his immense contribution to the discipline. Professor Das is a senior professor and the founding director of the Center for Culture, Media, and Governance, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. He was previously associate professor at the Department of Sociology, Jamia Millia Islamia. He has almost 3 decades of teaching and research experiences in the field of theory, method, and history of communication in India. Professor Das has been a visiting professor at York University, Toronto, fellow at the University of Windsor, Canada, East-West Center, Hawaii, MSH Paris, and the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Simla. Besides his teaching and research career, he has been involved with various civil society initiatives in the country in media advocacy program and development communication projects. His research has been supported by the Indo-French Scholarship, Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute, Charles Wallace India Trust, Ford Foundation, UNESCO, UNDP, IDRC, UGC, ICSR, naming a few. He is the co-editor of SAGE series, Communication Processes, of which the first volume, Media and Mediation, was published in 2005, and the second, The Social and the Symbolic, was published in 2007. The third volume on Culture and Confrontation was published in 2010. And recently he has published an edited book on Gandhi as a communicator. I convey my gratitude to Professor Das for giving his kind consent for this assignment and joining with us. Warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Vidhi.
In a personal note, I know Professor Das since 2014. Since then, I always seek opportunities to invite for delivering talks in my school. In fact, I'm excited to listen such speakers. Thank you, Professor Das, for accepting our invitation on many academic activities of our school. Today, Professor Das will talk on pedagogy and learning across cultural context, and his initiative, his center may be the best case study to discuss that. It's a very relevant topic as we encourage diversity. For instance, there are tribal students from Kendujhar district, a mining district of Odisha, to indigenous students from Kenya, a country in East Africa, in your school. So diversity is everywhere, and it's a great topic. We are looking forward to hear you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you,
Over
Vidhu.
to you, sir.
Thank you, Vidhu. It's indeed a wonderful experience we have. And also sharing with colleagues, young colleagues, who are the future in the field, in media studies or interdisciplinary media studies and so on. Much has to be done. Much has to be done. I would just share my narrative, my experience of my journey. You can say it's a kind of an autobiographical narrative about the way I looked at, visualized, even looked at the future of the field itself, because I come from sociology. Probably that is one of the reasons initially I never had any identity, any recognition within communications. Not communication, you can say journalism. It was not communication. Communication is a very recent one. Even we never talk much about communications. We talk about journalism, public relations. These are all so-called professional courses trapped within a kind of a false, what you call camouflage, that we are so-called professionals and so on. So I think that's where it was really, how the discipline, the whole trajectories, the history, if you look at the history of the discipline itself, how it grew. So I'm trying to demystify. I am going to demystify. And also we need to look at the institutional requirements and trajectories and the growth itself, where we talk about today, when we say media studies or communication studies, where journalism fits in. Or is communication studies is equivalent to what we call journalism studies, or you say that journalism is another way, part of communications. It is not communication per se. So that's what I wanted to submit to my young, curious minds, that this is how you need to look at. This is the context where I would also like to talk about institutions, that how such kind of institution which primarily engages with the kind of curriculum, curricular design, the pedagogies in which we are involved. As I would like to submit by saying that institutions are not built by mere cement and structure, but also ideas, convictions, passions, which are equally important. How you engage, what kind of ideas you would like to deliberate upon, and what convictions you have, and how much passion you have to be part of the institutions. I remember, like one of you, when I was enjoying my life in sociology, but focused on my specialization of media, I worked as a sociology of mass communication, and where you know that you function within kind of an optional subfield within sociology when you say sociology of mass communication. I mean, it is not given much importance. Well, it is another subfield, or you can say a specialization within broader sociology. And that is where I grew, matured over a period of time, came away from sociology. My entire purpose was that communication is an interdisciplinary engagement. It is no more a monopoly of any specific disciplines. But that is the context I would like to submit. Then I would like to go ahead with my discussion. So I would just say that I had, when I was a part of sociology, I had the freedom to introduce papers, do research as an independent researcher, media studies, and so on. Even traveled across the world and exposed to all media conferences, and realized where we stand today in the global map. I mean, I also realized that I'm in sociology, probably hence not much visible in what you call in conventional media departments. And I had frequent interactions with humanities, social sciences, but not with journalism departments per se. I mean, I also looked at the history and the growth of the discipline in India. I noticed that there is a gap in teaching and research in communications. I mean, research was the priority in social science and humanities, and of late in management as well. Um, and teaching was the only focus in journalism departments. I mean, such teaching only catered to so-called industry, that is press. I mean, accordingly, courses were structured. Of course, much has changed, occurred, or much has occurred within the last couple of decades. I mean, one should look at, but also one should look at what research method was introduced, and further the question arises, how much teaching of theory in communication supports, strengthens, and complements research. I think without a strong theoretical foundation, it is difficult to grasp method per se. And that is a clear reflection of our scholarship and contributions. And besides, research is a prerogative of social sciences. I mean, accordingly, the gamut of research and communication was undertaken in social sciences, such as in sociology, political science. As a growing nation, you need to engage communication in development, or whatever you say for development and so on, planning policies and so on. So mostly it looked at the macro structures of communication, such as you talk about organizations and so on. I mean, hardly there was any expansion of communication, bearing few historic institutions. I mean, if you talk about in pre-colonial, I mean, during colonial period, except you talk about Mysore, you talk about Lahore, and these were the first institutions. But our understanding of history of institution is also very poor, because we have not done much work on the history itself. It can be an institutional history, it can be a political history, it can be a cultural history, it can be an economic history of looking at institutions. I mean, one is yet to know about the curriculum and pedagogy practiced in these institutions, except we only capture individuals, personalities. Our personalities dominate our institutions, and that is where probably in India, when you talk about Indian politics, you talk about personalities rather than institutions, and that is where we miss our entire perspective and orientation in understanding society, history, culture, and politics. And so, what are the trajectories of these institutions? I mean, I'm sure much needs to be worked in future, except there is also in the recent times, there is a much fascination with history of communication. And this was probably missing throughout, as there is a strong suspicion and misunderstanding between history and journalism. History and journalism, because journalism itself says that because journalism is always critiqued by saying it is not one of the best recorder of history. Even though we talk about journalism is present, it looks at the novel, it looks at the exotic, it looks at contemporary. But the question is, how does one go back after 50 years to what you have written now? How does one go back? So that is a major document. That's a major document. So that is where we need to also engage with history. In fact, some of the important writers like today, like scholars like Bobby Jelija and so many others, they talk about where does journalism fits in within the larger scheme of things in history and memory. Can we recall, can we say that that is why journalism is sidelined in the entire memory business? So we do not subscribe to what journalists actually write, or historians do not give at all any importance to journalism. So this is where we need to engage. We need to more engage with these disciplines, and that is where we can bring our discipline at parity with other disciplines. In fact, you can see that past 4 decades have witnessed a meteoric rise of communication departments. In fact, in a way, it is extremely a positive development for the discipline and the disciplinarians, because more and more young people, I can see that they can come for even choosing a profession, teaching in the teaching profession, they're coming forward. Probably it was never there if you ask in 3 decades before. It was not. There were hardly any journalism departments or communication departments. But the question arises, how do we engage with the changing times? How do we engage with the changing times? I mean, questions of communication have been addressed outside the classroom and the curriculum by civil society, market, government, and the policy makers. The question arises, how much our course curriculum engages with these questions? And every day, the kind of the happenings, can we accommodate? Do we have such kind of courses we are formulating? Are we looking at all these developments? I mean, how much our course curriculum engages with these questions? I mean, I remember that I had the privilege, when I started teaching, I had the privilege to start almost 3 courses in sociology, media and society, culture, media and society, media education. Across undergrad and postgrad, I had started. That is also the time I realized that there is a realization of interdisciplinary engagement as the need of the hour. And luckily, in the 10th plan, I applied for a grant to MHRD, that why I need a center, an exclusive center on governance, because governance probably in 10th plan, if you speak, people would be very scary and look at you with suspicion, that they would say that, what do you mean by governance? What do you mean by governance? So I know a lot of my friends in the press industry, they would tell me, oh, you want to regulate us. Somebody would say that, okay, so you are basically a government man. I was surprised. Probably our understanding of governance is terribly poor. This is actually a shift, the whole paradigm shift. We are moving in the what you call during this entire liberalization period. It's also moving away from the government to governance. That's a whole paradigmatic shift which is occurring. And a course probably of that nature can transform our conventional understanding of media studies, journalism, communications. It can bring in vertically, it can link them up rather than a kind of a horizontal expansions. You talk about print journalism, broadcasting journalism. I mean, these are horizontal expansions. These are horizontal expansions. But what are the questions? What are the questions you have in media field? Because then you will say that, look, I can't speak your language. You can't speak my language. A print guy will say that, look, I don't understand ABC or visuals. Similarly, a visual chap would say that, look, what you guys are doing in print. If you recall the initial debates, the print chaps started talking about the television reporter, that they're just like goons. They will jump to the walls. They will go with their microphone and just push your microphone and to collect the bytes. So the story, the bytes, that is how we sort of try to, more and more itemize the whole developments that what we see. But the question is, what is linking vertically and trying to understand the broader communication field? That is missing. And now we only talk about a field. We have not yet talked about discipline. So that's another problem. It is just a field of inquiry. So that communication is just a field of inquiry because we never have any theory. At best, we have is what we call meta theory, and that is where we have not been engaged with the larger theoretical debates and questions. Probably we missed our entire engagement with modernity, like in social sciences, political science, economics, culture. You find that everybody they talk about, in fact, Graham Woodall talks about communication and the constitution of modernity, that why we missed it. Is it that so what we journalism chaps study is a very, very redundant. They talk about social responsibility, the models. They do not understand much distinctions between theory and models. They don't understand the theory and models. Even students are being taught about Shannon the Weaver model, but they do not understand the background, the context, from where it has come. How do we look at the idea of informatics? How informatics is a way to engage with how the whole development took place during Second World War. What are the developments? It's not taught. It's just mindlessly they're taught what is the source and the message and the receiver, redundancy, entropy, and it's a kind of a cyclical. I mean, it's a kind of a mechanized jargons and language where it has made itself completely confused as a field of inquiry because there was too much of North American imposition, and we have borrowed those ideas to make it more confused now. And that is where we sort of try to distantiate ourselves from other disciplines like humanities and social sciences. As a result, we had a tremendous kind of a truncated growth in the discipline itself. It never occurred, it never allowed, it never had flexibility. So I'm actually witnessing, I'm a self-taught man in communication. So I can see that what are their theoretical questions. So I broadly see that, look, social sciences after 50s, that is the time when the nation state formations come in place, where there is a serious realization of making more and more communication for development. So much research has been undertaken within social sciences, like in sociology, political science, how communications for national development, decision making, everywhere there are a lot of research. I don't think journalism at best trained its professionals for a growing country to require professionals. It has not done or contributed anything to the research field at all, because we have not yet even venture what we call journalism studies. We have not yet ventured. We talk about journalism. I'm yet to see that how much contributions are made in the field of journalism studies, except lingua, like you talk about the vernacular, then you talk about metro. We need to do more cultural history of journalism. We need to do more research on journalism. As a result, we could not capture because mostly we trained people to go to the industry, go to the industry. Even very few of them have even contributed except writing memoirs. Very few. I mean, memoir is actually a beginning. Memoir is a beginning to know about the field. But how much we know about press? How does press function? What is the hierarchy within the press? What is the relationship of labor within the press? So labor is another area probably we missed, as if we never seriously looked at press from a labor perspective. I mean, what kind of labor? Now we live in a time when there is a total shift in the labor patterns in the press itself. I mean, if you look at technology change, labor weighted change, they were not allowed to make unionizations. And that is where labor, there was a massive problem. And today, in fact, there is a delink between the journalism and the press. I mean, in fact, today it's saying that no press wants a journalist. No press wants a journalist. So you can find all the rank and file so-called journalists are desperate to come to the media field. I wish they should spend more time in the media field, do research, do sincere reading, then only they should start teaching. It's not that they start talking about what they did. They have not. I have my suspicion that hardly they have done anything except showing their face or writing a piece. That is not studies. So I think when you talk about academics, when you talk about studies, it's a rigorous work. It's a rigorous work. You need to have a sophistry, you need to have a scholarship, you need to follow it. It's not just you say that I was in industry. We know what kind of industry are we talking about. These are actually, cottage industries. In fact, family-owned business, it doesn't function even in that sense as an industry at all, because it doesn't function as a student of social theory and social organization. If you apply organizational theory and try to understand that which one is functioning like an organization, you will clearly know, because then these kind of studies are missing. These kind of studies are missing because we don't do such studies. We don't analyze what kind of decision making within the press itself. So press in that sense is a totally a cottage industry. In fact, what Indira Gandhi said long time ago in the early 80s, it's still there, it prevails like that. There is no change. Nobody can question press. Press is, so that is where you find that our scholarship and our research is terribly weak. We have never looked at these questions and issues. Rather, we are talking with confidence about others, talking about outside. When we have not set our home right, we have been talking about outside. So that's what I'm trying to say. So the idea of governance, when I say that much thinking has gone in making center, what you call a Center for Culture, Media and Governance. And as I said, that why governance, there were criticisms within university. And of course, there are vested interests. People would say that, why don't you remove governance and make it art, Center for Culture, Media and Art, because people have their own vested interests and they would like to take over. These are a part of our institutional academic politics where things happen and people take over. Or there are media professionals, those who would say that, look, what do you mean by governance, regulate? Or industry guys, they would say that why you are talking about governance. But today, I'm happy to say that governance has become a buzzword across media conversations. So you talk about regulations, you talk about, I think in that sense, our course is much ahead of its time when we thought of formulating course. But I must tell you, making a course is not that an easy job. Making a course is not that an easy job. I mean, I have been, prior to opening this institution, I have almost spent not less than, you can say, 25 years. I mean, 25 years in serious engagement in communication. I know thoroughly, I have been a part of so many committees and how curricular design and made. I've been a part of it. I know in all universities, how much the young people are actually engaged in making a course. I have sat with several people and trying to help them. In fact, this is a skill This is a skill. If young people learn, they will never sit idle. And that is what we do consultancy with foreign countries. You know, they come and design curriculum, think about curriculum, a curriculum where what kind of pedagogy is to be incorporated. Otherwise, it's just like what happens that traditionally you bring three curriculum and make the fourth one out of that, cut paste and make fourth one. So this is a usual practice in conventional universities. It doesn't allow you to think. It doesn't allow you to think. It is never a kind of a cerebral, engagement. It is not a cerebral engagement. I remember when we started making our course, media governance, that was a challenging. Everybody would say that please prepare it and give it to me, I will teach. So I used to tell them that if you don't know how to prepare a course, how will you teach it? What kind of concept map you have? What kind of a concept map? Like we never ask a teacher that if I'm going to a class, I mean, if I'm teaching a paper, what kind of a concept map visualizing the paper, what I'm going to give it to the students? If I'm not sure, what do I deliver? What do I deliver? I'm actually not teaching. I'm cheating. I'm cheating completely. I mean, or even a teacher becomes a news reader. Teacher becomes a news reader. Like he reads out going to the class. In fact, I'm not saying it. It's Merton who says, one of the social theorists, R.K. Merton, who says that the teacher is just like a TV news reader. It's just like a TV news reader. He's just reading out. Either you read out from a piece or you read out the screen. And that is where a teacher is. I mean, that is where you need to understand that how the whole trajectories have emerged and grown. But the question is, today you are engaging with students, young, curious mind. They are sharp and they are media savvy. They're media savvy. I mean, I can't teach them about how to handle a social media, how to handle a mobile, how to handle a newspaper. I can't teach them. They know more than that. Now, if that is an environment, what do I teach in media? What do I teach in media? I'll tell them that look how to look at media. And also at the same time, I'll teach them how to make nuisance with the media. This is a paradox. This is a paradox. We live in media education. On the one hand, we teach them about morals, but what do's and don'ts about media. At the same time, we tell them to be creative in media. So that's a paradox in our teaching. By the time a student passes out, doesn't know where to earn his or her livelihood, ultimately joins such kind of industries where they are compelled to forget about studies and they get into a kind of an occupation. We don't have any clarity on media education. We don't have any clarity on media education. I think that is where it is missing. So now the question is, I quickly thought about, so can I see my screen? Is it been uploaded? Bidu?
Sir, I have already shared the screen, if you can see. Shared the PPT that you have mailed me.
Achha, where is it?
It's
But is it moving?
no, it's not moving. I was not moving the slide.
Yeah. So how do you move it? So just quickly, just scroll it down. Yes. No, this you just go down. Yeah, you can see these are no, just up. You can see this is what I had a target. That the center was established in 6, but literally it was functional in 7, where faculty were recruited, libraries built. I mean, we never had funds. Let me honestly tell you that center never had any funds. So the question is, how do we mobilize funds? So mostly you can see that within past 10, you can say 14 years, whatever research I did, as a part of the research project, I always had a budget for books. All the books are there in the library. I requested people to donate books because we realized that we live in a time where public institutions have completely become collapsed. So this is where idea is that if I keep the book, at least if not today, tomorrow somebody will read. Library is a public institution. I built a library with the best of the collections, so which is again part of my project contributions. And this is where a vibrant library we have, and it's almost more than 7,000 books are there, periodicals are there, This is very new. I don't have any fund much in, but you can see the activities which I've done that probably will give you that if an agency can overthrow the structure, that's what I just wanted to argue, that if individual motives and passions are there, you can transform the institutions. So that is what matters most today. Now, when you talk about institutions, now in 7 I had a target of 10 years. Timeline, I have to contribute for the institution as a director. I think I was a long-standing director from 2006 to 2020, and I had my range, my focus, what I want to do. So these are the achievements. You can see Center is the only center for excellence in India. So you can see that Center for Excellence in Media and Communication Studies, which was awarded by MHRD UGC in 2016 to 2021. Then you can see Center was awarded DRS. Then Center was also by UK Research Council. Then Center also Nodal Center. Yeah, next. You go down. I don't need so you can see the kind of diversity. Then this is wait, collaborations. Go up. Now, collaboration. You can see that within 10 years, we had a very vibrant collaborations with different parts of the world. That is where we call it Lund University, Sweden, and then Waikato, New Zealand, then University of Toronto, Catholic. Oh, why you're moving? I'm just. Yeah, you can see it. This is actually, idea is that what is the output of these collaborations? I mean, we had, you can see courses jointly taught, then collaborative research, faculty exchange, then you can see even student visit, and this is what we did independent. I mean, I am saying that I did independently, except that the university had to know, but this is what our contribution in making the institution. Next. Can you go to the next? Yeah, now teaching. It's an interdisciplinary program, MA, then we have MA MPhil program. Next. So these are the cluster areas in which we work. Media and governance, media, culture and society. Then, so these are the cluster areas. Then these are the people who are part of our fellows. You can know Sri Krishna Deva Rao, who is now the Vice Chancellor. Then you have research profile. Just wait. So the kind of a promotion of research. Next. Yeah. So you can say research facilities next. Yeah. So collaborations, I said about teaching, research, and conferences. Next. Then we did a lot of international activities with different parts of the world. This is with Canada, with York University. And also we did a series of capacity building programs for the young faculty, research scholars, and these are all data. Just keep it there. So this is called knowledge production 15. I think much has happened after that. And these are all data, then ongoing research, then what are the existing research. Next. And there will be also one slide probably where you will see how much money we have generated. Next. Like these are documents which you prepare to give it to the funder. The funder asks that what is your USP, what you have done in the field, so that they will be interested to know. Anyway, so I just go to the last and keep it at the visual. Can you? Yeah. These are visual. Just starting. Anyway, I just wanted to go to my theme, to what I was interested to discuss about. This is pedagogy and learning, right? So idea is that when I talk about pedagogy and learning, there is a much development which happened around, I mean, ever since 2012, 13, 14, you find there is a resource crunch, and teachers, low paid teachers, contractual, daily, what do you call, guest faculty and so on. I mean, you see that Indian higher education is at the crossroads. This, I mean, it can, this has risen due to, I mean, you can say two contrasting factors. I mean, the first refers to the growing enthusiasm among the Indian policymakers to initiate innovation in pedagogy and learning to meet the challenges of what we call internationalizing higher education and to ensure standard and compatibility in a global context. And the second, of course, stems from a lack of resources, skilled human power, and relevant infrastructure in Indian institutions of higher learning. There are astute policymakers have realized that the use of ICT can triumph, in fact, the present lies by catalyzing innovations in pedagogy and curricula through flexible learning and addressing the crisis of trained manpower and infrastructure. I mean, while realizing such a potential of ICT in higher education, policymakers have failed to provide a pathway, say, to integrate and blend such innovations with existing institutionalized forms of pedagogy and conventional learning environments. I mean, what I would like to make in my presentation to explore that learning is negotiated between global and local settings, and the related effectiveness of cross-cultural communication through a video conference tools. I mean, I have sort of tried to draw my experiences of 4 years of video conferencing on communication and cultural studies between my Center for Culture, Media and Governance, and York University, Toronto. And we analyze here the factors that influence the effectiveness of cross-cultural communication mediated by video conferencing systems. I mean, the nature of international cross-cultural video-mediated communication calls for a closer look into the issue of cultural and social differences among the participants and the challenge of bridging these differences for more effective interactions. I'm sure that much needs to be done today because of the pandemic. The whole institutional setups have literally closed and everybody is gaga about online entry. But we need to have a serious analysis, retrospect also, to look at that what actually this entails to, what more to be done, in what way it is different from a conventional classroom, or it is a continuation, how much we have engaged with it. These are the questions which continuously it should come. Also, it should reflect on pedagogies. What kind of pedagogies are we talking about? I mean, here I'm just giving you an example, an experiment we did almost for 2011, 12, 13, 14, 4 years. We experiment with video conferencing tools and having classes from both the sides during a particular time. So I would talk to you about the anxiety, the problems, what happens, engagement with it. It's actually an ethnography of the footage which we collected for 4 years, recorded, and on the basis of that, then interviewing the students and sort of trying to make a kind of a presentation of that. I mean, we reflect on the challenges encountered in setting up a binational cross-cultural learning environment where in a wider academic milieu yet to in fact open up for internationalization of education. I mean, we investigate how the practice of cross-cultural learning negotiates identities and differences in designing and conducting even teaching learning programs, and how particular institutional setting copes between the ideas, norms, and expectations of conventional learning and those through ICT tools within a common organization. I mean, here I sort of try to adopt a very autobiographical narrative to address some of these concerns on the basis of the information gathered from our ongoing teaching program. I mean, as I said, about 11 to 14. Now, starting off modestly, I would say that starting modestly as a lecture series on communication and cultural studies. I mean, this program has gathered strength and metamorphosized into a collaborative teaching on a common course between two universities located in different geographical settings. I mean, in fact, the 4 years They speak volumes regarding the institutional preparedness, will to innovate, investment in such exercise, and finally the need for blending ICT tools with conventional classroom instructions. The experiment undertaken by CCNG is unique in the sense it started independent of a formal institutional mandate and also realized to urge to connect internationally based on its own global presence in the field of media and communication studies. I mean, ever since the center made its curriculum, I went to Montreal. I presented the course curriculum in Montreal in 2009, and it was received, it was accepted as one of the most innovative curriculum design course, which was, and as a result, people poured in, They didn't ask for any money, anything. They just wanted to be part of the movement. So teaching is a movement, like you are teaching a media governance course, you name people from Annenberg, from Belgium, from Brussels, from Canada, everywhere people started coming, and Finland, everywhere they wanted to be part of. So they just spent time at the center, started teaching a paper, giving series of lectures, and they bloated it across the world. Because first time a media governance course in master's program coming out. So which is governance is basically part of a study, but really it has been legitimized as a course. In fact, I would give you a brief example of the beginning of journalism course. You know that if you look at the history of journalism, or there are two punch-liners I would like to suggest by saying that from self-conscious creation, remember very carefully, from self-conscious creation, there is an endless recreations. If you want to capture your field, you just apply this line. That is enough. From self-conscious creation to endless recreations. Now, if you look at the history of media courses or research program, it actually started in Chicago. Where you find during the Second World War, people like Robert H. Park and you know about Maynard Hutchins, Robert Maynard Hutchins. You know about Maynard Hutchins. The first press commission report which came out is actually the Hutchins Committee report. He was the chancellor, or you call it president, of Chicago University, who had a strong support. And that is how a lot of activities happened during Second World War on communication research activities in Chicago. By the time the Second World War was over, the project was over. So no more communication activities. I think it was meant for a project that is to understand propaganda studies, to understand interballistic missiles, where you talk about your feedbacks, your prediction, all you study is a part of your models, you know, about Norbert Weiner, who actually works on prediction. He was a cyberneticians. In fact, today we talk about cybernetic capitalism and so on. In fact, when you talk about an ATM or you talk about your mobile, this is all cybernetically controlled. So surveillance and anything data can be projected and undertaken for it. So this is all done in 1940s. It's nothing new, 1940s. So when you talk about information theory, in fact, Shannon and Weaver was actually a student of Norbert Weiner. Shannon and Weaver was a student of Norbert Weiner, and Norbert Weiner in Harvard, actually, he was the guy who actually was studying about predictability of missiles. And it's not about whether missile hits or not. The prediction is being studied, measured. And that is where how to measure communication and how to make communication predictable. That is what he studied. And that is where you talk about, when you talk about SNCR, source message channel receiver, like coming back. It's again going back to the source. It's actually you're trying to understand the whole circuit that you are trying to make communication predictable. And that is where, in fact, Dallas Smith, another very important Canadian communication scholar, says, very interestingly, says that after exploitation of nature, now nature has been thoroughly exploited. Now the next is to exploit human beings by making human beings predictable, by making human beings predictable. That is where you find that how human behavior can be predicted, and that is where machines will be used. So, like whether I'm eligible for a driving license or not, I have to stand before, and this is where you find there is a marked change. Anyway, so I was just saying that I did this kind of. So now I find there is a much distinction between what you call the desire and the capabilities. I mean, the idea and initiative to connect with York University started with very frequent interaction and exchange of scholars between both the universities. And most immediately, this resulted in a collaborative research and conferences. As in the norm in academia globally, given in, I mean, intense what we call traction in our teaching and research interests, the next step intuitively seemed to be develop a teaching program been conducted through video conference mode. I mean, on the one hand, this was a growing necessity as York University was looking at such a teaching learning mode as an integral part of internationalizing their academic program, especially towards the global south. On the other hand, we at CCMG were also looking for a regular international exposure to our students and curriculum enrichment from or by teachers from the global north. And accordingly, Jamia administration was approached and informed about the proposed initiatives, as it required not only administrative approval, but also support towards the logistics of launching such a novel and collaborative teaching course. I mean, all this hinged around the pressing requirement to install a video conferencing system in the university. But the central administration instructed us to contact the computer center of the university and seek all assistance from them. However, the computer center revealed that the university did not have any video conferencing facility. Occasionally, it had used Skype to connect for lectures with outside institutions. When we explained about the difference between a Skype and a video conference, especially the pedagogical advantages of the latter, and in charge of the computer center helplessly suggested, if you pursue with the administration, they may take the initiative to install at least one system in the entire university. I mean, we explained to our colleagues at the university about the importance of ICT system and the urgent need to integrate with classroom-based teaching. Most of them looked at us suspiciously. I mean, some even making skeptical remarks that we are becoming even managers. We did not give up, but we did not give up. I mean, the continuous mail from the technician, York University, to test the system before the video conference session was alarming. As the dates were finalized for the lectures, it was an embarrassing moment for us to stick to the mutually agreed schedule with York University without even having a video conferencing system. So when we inquired about the requirements for renting a video conferencing system, we were told by the computer center that we will also have to have a temporary line, lease additional telephone lines with high bandwidth. I mean, the computer center suggested us to approach the local telephone exchange and ask them to install a video conferencing equipment on a temporary basis. I mean, when the local telephone exchange was requested for setting up the equipment and the additional telephone lines, they informed that they would help in providing additional lines, but guided us to approach the head office. And after visiting the head office, we had a sigh of relief that our initiative would be possible and the required equipment may be installed and the lecture series conducted on the due dates. We requested the authorities in the head office of the telephone exchange to install the lease equipment and temporary lines so as to test the system with our better endowed and organized collaborations in Toronto. I mean, the continuous emails from the technician, York University, to test our system before the video conference session was alarming. I mean, the telephone authorities appreciated our concern, but wanted us to meet the deadlines for depositing the required fee. I mean, this was a huge sum. Neither our center had funds to allocate, nor the provision to spend such an extracurricular activity. The budget was prepared and submitted to Jamia administration for approval and immediate sanction. There was no response from the university administration regarding the support. Finally, we pressed the panic buttons to requested the coordinator from York University, who happened to be a project director of a collaborative project with me. I mean, the fund for this collaborative project was housed in York University. He promptly agreed to divert the requisite amount from their administration in Toronto to our university in New Delhi. I mean, in parallel, both sides agreed the 9 a.m. in Toronto corresponding to 6:30 p.m. in Delhi. Imagine, their morning time, 9 a.m., is our 6:30 p.m. in Delhi. Would be the most pragmatic time to commence all the lectures, 6 o'clock in the evening. But since the lectures started in September, we were quick to realize that the shift daylight saving time in Canada meant the lectures time would be pushed back by an hour after October. This has meant that a CCMG would finish close at 10 p.m., making it a long 12 hours as the regular classes. I mean, the day of testing the equipment approach and the rented equipments. I think, Bidu, you must be trying to stop my lecture, isn't that? 5 o'clock, you have a... And anyway, this is this is a long piece, and I will circulate. You can circulate to the people because it's a narrative, autobiographical narrative. I'm open for questions. I'm sure you must be thinking about. So I will stop here. I will pass it on to you. You can discuss. So what I'm saying is, it's actually about the triumphs, the trajectories, the agony, what has gone through in making it finally. I would request to show the last, the videos, please. Please show me the last videos, what I said about the videos. Can you show me that PPT, that video?
Sir, this one? Let me know which one it is.
The PPT I sent you,
Yes,
go to the last 10 slides, 10, 15 slides, quickly. Yeah. So now you can see this is go to the first one. I have basically, this slide can also be given to the people. It will give you an idea about the architectural spaces. And over these 4 years, how many spaces we have changed, how many places we have shifted within the university perimeter. And finally, I was successful in setting up in 2014. Go to the last slides. Go to the last slides. Last. Yes. You can see here. You can see. Make it a little bigger. Can you make it a little bigger? This is actually a slide which we see that initially we were successful in making video lab. And that also I got it not from university, from a DRS grant. So that I made that I will use it as a technology as a part of this. In fact, I recall when I was traveling with late President Pranab Mukherjee in 2013, and I was traveling with all the Vice Chancellor. Not all the Vice Chancellor. I had the Delhi University Vice Chancellor, JNU and Hyderabad, and I was representing Jamia. And Pranab Mukherjee was very particular, probably one of the presidents who was always excited about academic activities. He called in the night, around dead night, we were sleeping in the flight. This is an Air India one. He invited us. He invited us and asked about what did you, how do you see that the education? And then I promptly said that we already have started experimenting with video conferencing method of teaching, and that is how we connect with other universities across the world. I mean, all the VC looked at me. I didn't care because what I'm doing, I'm very forthright about my initiative. So I just put it there. And interestingly, when Pranab Mukherjee started addressing nationwide through video conferencing, then all the institutions across the country started acquiring video conferencing technologies. सब ले लिया, किसी ने डायरेक्टर के कमरे में, कोई वीसी के कमरे में, सब अपने अपने कमरे में लगा लिया, नॉट फॉर कॉमन space where it can be used, and everybody, so that they would like to say, yes sir, we are listening very eagerly to you. I'm saying that is how institution functions, and we need to talk more about how these technologies to be used in that context. I think I will stop here, and I just wanted to show you the last one. This is my journey to make it, and finally to establish a video conference hall. You can see all these equipments. So this is how I made it as part of all projects. So each one is actually a contribution of the project what I did. Okay, thank you. So we can have a few questions.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to hear to Biswajit, sir. We could go on for hours. It is like it's a cerebral engagement because sir has immense experience. He's a creator and a builder. So people who have built things across years, they have so much experience that you feel like you could just sit and keep hearing what they are saying. So sir gave us important points to think about, and I'm sure all of us have some questions. So if
Please.
type in the questions and then
Yeah, sure.
a confusion, then one by one we can even unmute and ask questions to sir. Please. We have like, I suppose, 10 minutes with you, sir. And Vishwajit, sir.
So, yeah, we can spend 10 minutes, so we'll get 5 minutes
Yeah,
break
please.
before Sir's lecture. And I think there may be a raise hand button, so anybody can raise the hand and ask the question. Before anybody, let me take the opportunity and ask one question to Sir. I remind the lecture what you had delivered in Pune University during my working there. And during that talk, you had talked a lot about. In fact, you had critiqued the video wala or the too much the importance of media, understanding media, too much of journalism without going to the core principles or the, you can say, philosophy of journalism. But at the end, when you are concluding your presentation today, you are presenting the video conference hall. So that video wala to this video conference hall.
I got it. See, that was actually, yes. I think there is a shift in pedagogies. There is a shift in pedagogies. In fact, we have been very, very elitist and very snobbish about experimenting with media education. Our understanding of media education is actually chalk and board and the classroom. And when you say media education, it's a very elitist proposition. I've written earlier in the UNESCO volume, in the Global Handbook on the World Media Education World Policy by Divina Fromax. I wrote it I think maybe 15 years back. Divina Fromax, you can see it, you can download it. So there I was critically engaging with the idea that why media education is not much in circulation in India. And even though UNESCO promoted, then UNESCO completely dropped down. When I met UNESCO, one of the advisors, I said that I want to do a project on media education. This lady is telling me it is not a very sexy subject. So I said, what do you mean by a subject which has to be sexy? I'm saying we have deliberately ignored. But why suddenly media education today? That is actually a very intriguing question. Now, today, when we talk about media education, actually, there is a tremendous potential of education market, which has been captured by the global fundings. Now, you find the European councils and others have invested huge amount of money in building this whole resources, what you call internet resources. Now, this is where they would like to capitalize on more and more education at what you call in terms of repositories. So that is where, when you talk about media education, probably we have never addressed that issue, that aspect at all. Only we talk about media education, journalism education, which is not. I think our understanding is very hollow. hollow. We don't understand media education. I mean, media education, or I mean, I'm going to speak on 25th. That is on actually media design and education. But I hear that it was not the context. But anyway, I just wanted to say media education is a much broader rubric where it brings in all disciplines. We need to question, is it that we are talking about horizontally or vertically? We want to bring in all our diversity in terms of our development, like journalism, broadcast journalism, convergence. We bring them all together and put it under the banner media education. We look at it as a kind of an conceptually we need to engage, or we talk about, because mostly scholars in India, those who talk in the name of media education only on journalism education, they do not do justice at all. They do not do justice at all. I think they do not understand at all the media education. It's a very, very recent concept. It's a very recent concept. That's what I have been writing and I have written, but probably people miss it. People don't understand. Everybody thinks that they are doing media education because they are not clarity about what actually in media education they're talking about. We are not engaged media in terms of an education from an educational theory point of view. And when you say media education, either you look at it from an educational theory in terms of engaging with media, or when you say media education as a socialization category, as an institution, or even in terms of when you say media education, you're talking about a pedagogy like a pedagogy of physics or chemistry. Similarly, you are talking about a media pedagogy. So there are a lot of differences, and I've written extensively, and probably we never engage with these questions. And I think there is a more time we need to spend time and discuss and debate. Somebody has asked some question. Yeah, I can read it.
Dr. Pranta Patnaik wants to ask a question, sir.
Who? Pranta, what is it, Pranta? Pranta, please go ahead.
Sir, would you like to ask the question, Dr. Pranta?
Yeah, thank you, Ruby ma'am. Hello, sir. Hello, Bidu.
Hi, Pranta. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir,
Please.
Yeah, sir. In the slide somewhere, when I see one of the mission of the center is indigenization of media studies.
Absolutely. That was my entire focus.
Yeah. So when we
See,
are talking,
please.
Yeah, when we are talking about indigenization of media studies, and it is pertaining to one of the question also that has come from some of the audience also, like, are we talking about de-westernization of media theories and can we create our own media theories? Yeah, and where do
Is
we
that the
stand?
question? Is that the question?
And where do we stand as a as evolving with our own media design or media theory?
Absolutely. You see, I mean, the papers which are there in the design, the course which we designed is an excellent one. But I always made it a point that these are all in progress. Each paper is in a progress. Each paper is in a progress, is a project. I said that I look at each paper as a project.
Sir is probably having little internet issues.
Yeah, his video freezed. Bidu sir, you may contact sir. Kind of.
Yeah. So my point is that we are just going to complete the session, though
So
we
what
have
is
received.
one last question? Archana, you can have the last question. Archana, go ahead.
Sir, I asked the same question which Pranta Patnaik has asked. So it was just like that, whether we should place when we are actually theoretically approaching media. So in most of the lectures, and we very rightly said by you that we mostly focus on the content, and it is very superficial when we research on media. So theory building is a very big problem. So should we develop our own theory? How should we approach? Should we take theories from communication background, or it is very difficult from here and there we are borrowing it?
I understand it. See, nothing is communication exclusive.
Yeah.
Nothing is communication exclusive. In fact, I forgot to give you another punchline. I just want to say that, in social science, communication is extremely under theorized. Okay. Now keep this statement very carefully. In social science, communication is extremely under theorized. On the contrary, in communication, it is purely untheorized. Okay.
Sir, untheorized and under-theorized. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, see, whatever the developments has taken place in communication, in social science, they are least concerned, because we have never engaged in social sciences. So they are less bothered. So now, as a student of sociology of mass communication, when I worked for 30 years, I realized that how much they know and what is happening. There is no discussion, no debates in communication. Communication was never a priority in sociology. They said, look, poverty is the first priority. Who the hell talks about communications? It took me struggled when I was doing my thesis, when I was working. I know that how difficult, probably I was the only communication man who's doing PhD. Imagine. Now suddenly today you see that communication is an area of study. So I'm saying that so that is where I'm saying it is under theorized. They're not interested to talk about communication. They put them all together. So Bidu, that's why you remember when I told you that tum film wale, that language which used by the pro vice chancellor to me. He says, all people, those who work in media are all film walas. Arey tum film wale, media wale. I said, look, I'm not a media wala, I'm a sociologist. I said, I'm a sociologist. Don't say that. So, that's how they look down upon, because we never seriously engage with theory. So that is what I'm saying. We need to work. We need to work in a tandem, in a team. We need to engage in dialogues, and more we should do in future. Chalo, thank you. Thank you. I will circulate all these stuff with you so that you can have a look at it.
Sure.
And I'm sure that we will have more discussions because we will build it up. Thank you very much.
Sir, namaskar.
So nice of you. Thank
Okay,
you. So good, so good. Yeah, so good.
Thank you.
Ravindran
Okay.
sir is also here. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Please.
Biswajit, great.
Ravi. Nice. I haven't done your work. I haven't stuck with all.
Okay, it's
So
okay,
I
it's
will-
okay, it's okay.
So give me a little break. I will do it after
Okay.
tomorrow. So
Yes,
tomorrow we
yes.
have another one. So
Yeah,
Can we take another question?
yeah, please. Now Ravi is also there, so no problem. Please go ahead.
I will pick where you left, Biswajit. Untheorized, under-theorized.
Yes. I think that is a very, very vital. That's a very
Yeah.
vital one.
Vital one, yeah.
Mohammad
Yeah.
Amir Pasha, he wants to ask your question, sir.
What is it?
It's about current media scenario. Sir, if you are here, then you could personally ask the question.
Current media?
He wants to ask, with the third press commission, is it needed? Mr.
First, I can't hear you. Where is the question?
Sir, I'm talking about that. क्या थर्ड प्रेस कमीशन की अब जरूरत है?
You see,
Because, sir,
I don't know. I actually, honestly, I can't answer. I'm not a. You see, I can't say. Even though these commissions are there, how does it matter? I'm a scholar. I have nothing to do with these kind of commission reports, which is useless thoroughly. If you look at the first press commission, and probably that misled the entire discipline itself. If I go by, I still sometimes we need to seriously engage with the first press commission, and we say that why our discipline is today in this stage. You read all that. What is this? Natarajan's long excerpts in that particular
Yes,
first
sir.
press commission report. Natarajan, what is Natarajan's background? And Natarajan talking about giving a very, very romanticized notion about journalism. So what he's talking about is a completely a literary understanding of journalism. It is not about an academic understanding of journalism. Hardly why people did not take it up in journalism field. I mean, I find When I read Natarajan's descriptions, I find it's a purely a literary engagement. Like you were comparing with London, you were comparing with the British, the nobilities, the nobles, and all. I mean, what nonsense! I mean, where we are, and why you talk about England? And imagine, I say that journalism as an idea which brewed in England and matured in America, then exported to all over the world as an idea. And now in America, it matured. And finally, it was exported all the ideas. Today, in America, there is a strong criticism of the kind of journalism we are talking about. But still, we follow with the same idea. I think that is where we need to seriously engage. Even though there is a third press commission, how does it matter? None of the commission reports are useful at all. We are thinking about, these are policy questions that hardly affects your academic scholarship. If you are a scholar, if you want to be a scholar, seriously engage with your subject and the discipline. Don't think about what the government doing is or what others are doing. Follow on your work. Don't bother much about what is happening. Even though there is a press commission report comes, how does it help you in any way? Your scholarship will remain forever. So that is where you need to work. Forget about all these. These are peripheral issues. This is not the prime issue. I think I will stop here. I've taken enough time. So, ciao.
Thank you so much.
Ciao. Thank you.
Since we are running out of time.
Yeah, please. I'm through.
I would now invite my colleague and our faculty from School of Mass Communication, Mr. Saptik Garai, to give the vote of thanks. And I would like to add that please put in the feedback form again. It is open now. I'm posting it again also. Saptik, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. A graceful and warm evening to one and all present here. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on the first session of day 1 of Faculty Development Program organized by School of Mass Communication, KIIT deemed university. COVID-19 has taken the world by storm, and we academicians find ourselves in a critically important situation with the responsibility of future generations on our shoulders. Today's session on pedagogy and learning in a cross-cultural context, presented by Dr. Biswajit Das, Professor and Founding Director, Center for Culture, Media and Governance, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, has for sure thrown some light on the indigenization of media studies, the need to rethink journalism education, more so in the age of ICT and the pandemic. Thank you, sir, for your talk. I, Saptik Garai, on behalf of the School of Mass Communication and the entire fraternity of KIIT deemed to be university, extend my most sincere thanks to Dr. Achita Samanta, Honorable Founder of KIIT and KISS, Professor Rishikesh Mohanty, Vice Chancellor of KIIT deemed University, Dr. Shasmita Samanta, Pro Vice Chancellor, KIIT deemed University, Professor Gyanaranjan Mohanty, Registrar of KIIT deemed University. On my behalf, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to Professor Himanshu Sekhar Khatwa, CEO of Film, Fashion and Mass Communication Schools at KIIT University, for his guidance to conduct such events. I thank all the participants for gracing this event and sharing with us your questions on the relevant theme. I thank Ms. Ruby Nanda, Assistant Professor at School of Mass Communication, KIIT deemed University, for moderating the session. Last but not the least, I extend my hearty thanks to Dr. Vidubhushan Das, Course Coordinator of School of Mass Communication, KIIT deemed University, for your guidance. With that, I conclude my vote of thanks. Thank you very much.